Growing up, my mother taught me a very important life lesson. It was simple. Never exclude anyone. That feeling of being unwelcomed was something she told me to never inflict upon anyone. So, each year, everyone was invited to my birthday parties, and going to the movies with a friend turned into going with 10 friends. So why now should I act any differently? I choose the words I say very carefully in order to ensure that everyone around me feels comfortable and included. Our language has a great power. It's the power to exclude, isolate, demean. Language has a dark side. We must acknowledge that fact so that we can begin to move toward inclusivity for all. I learned about the idea of inclusive language 2 years ago. The Collins English Dictionary describes inclusive language as language that avoids the use of certain expressions or words that might be considered to exclude particular groups of people. I have practiced and will continue to practice this thoughtful way of speaking forever. This is an important issue, and I hope you see how it affects your past, present, and future self. So I encourage you to listen as I go over the problem, that language has a dark side, the solution, the use of inclusive language, and finally the steps that each of us can take to solve this issue. So now that I've gone over what we're going to talk about today, let's jump into my first point. The truth of today is that we all use and hear non-inclusive language each day, and it negatively affects everyone around us. The first reason why this problem exists is that we are so informal about the way we speak, and we rarely stop to think before we open our mouths. For those of you who have been to Isla Vista, think of a typical Friday night. How many times do you hear the words bitches, slut, faggot, cunt? The list goes on. And all are said carefree and without thought. Now think of our social media and the ease with which people use the same language. The website, No Homophobes, shows the domination of these words in our society. As you can see, the website tallies the number of times these words are said on Twitter each day. The word faggot has been used 42,000 times today. These numbers are staggering and should be alarming. The second reason why this problem exists is that we think if we don't use a word in a derogatory manner, then it couldn't possibly be hurtful. We've all heard someone say, "That's so gay," when referring to something as dumb or stupid. We need to start thinking about the consequences that our words can have. There are countless numbers of stories that end so sadly due to hate speech, whether it is intentional or not. Now that I've gone over the issues, a study done by Hall and LaFrance was published in Communication Quarterly in March 2012. The study asked young people to explain their use of the phrase, "that's so gay." So one young man said, "I don't use it to offend the gay community. I even have a few homosexual friends, and when I say something like, 'God, the culture's so gay,' they don't take it literally." Well, Hall and LaFrance would say that this tendency to deny that an offensive nature to this phrase exists is the problem. If we deny that our words have a dark side, how are we to move forward? All right, so now that we've gone over the problems, I would like to talk about some solutions. From my perspective, there are two main ways that people can make a change in their lives to solve this issue. The first solution is that we can be proactive in changing our own language. The University of Maryland is currently conducting an inclusive language campaign. They encourage their students to think of another way to get their message across. For example, let's say you and I just walked out of our microbiology exam, and you say to me, "Man, that exam just raped me." Would you think twice if you knew that I was a survivor of sexual assault?
Yes.
I hope you would. Would any of you think twice about saying something was ghetto or retarded if you knew that directly offended me? Well, the campaign wants us to assume that there is always someone listening that could be offended, because there usually is. Now, the second solution is that we can educate others on the topic. Now, we shouldn't be afraid to stand up and question people about their words. When someone says something's gay, I ask them what they mean by that. We are each other's teachers and we are each other's students, and together we will move toward inclusivity. All right, we've talked about the problems and the solutions, and now I want to emphasize my last main point. Something that we need to know is that these solutions will work when we realize that we are all in this together. First of all, this issue affects you, it affects me, either directly or indirectly. I want to take a quick poll by a raise of hands, and please only participate if you feel comfortable. But how many of you have felt directly affected by someone else's words? All right, and how many of you know someone else that has been directly offended? Now that's just about everyone in this room. We are all in this world together, and I believe there is no excuse to use our language to isolate one another. Second of all, this is such an easy fix. It doesn't require a lot of time, money, power. It simply requires each of us to make the pledge to ourselves that we are going to stop using ignorant language. I encourage each of you to challenge yourselves and to challenge your friends to join this thoughtful movement. To wrap up, I would like to reiterate a few things. Our words, our language, our communication, it has this dark side. But we have the power to change it. We talked about the problems, the solutions, and the fact that if we all come together, we can create social change. So, I'm not saying we need to invite everyone in this room to our next birthday party, but I am saying we need to treat one another with respect. Let's remove the dark side to our words, and let's step into the bright side of inclusive language.